Alright, welcome back. Now we are going to look at the four-sided shapes and classify them based on their attributes. Remember, attributes are just their qualities or their physical description. So the first word on our board is quadrilaterals. Quadrilaterals have four sides. They also have four angles. But with the quadrilateral, none of their sides are the same length, and none of their angles are the same value. None of their angles form a right angle, which is a corner, and none of the lines that form that shape are parallel. A quadrilateral does not have the ability to be divided on a line of symmetry, and they are not able to show you the same angle at any point. This is a picture of a quadrilateral. It has four sides, four corners. None of the sides are the same length, and none of the angles are the same angle. So now let's move to the square. A square also has four sides. But the difference between a square and a quadrilateral is all of the sides in the square are the exact same length. So they have all congruent sides. And if all the sides are congruent, then all of the angles must be the exact same. A square has four right angles, and the lines across from each other run parallel. And a square can be divided four different ways based on the line of symmetry. Something you need to know is a square is always a rectangle, but a rectangle is never a square, because squares have all four sides the same and a rectangle doesn't. But the square follows the rectangle rules. So let's look at a rectangle. A rectangle has four sides and four angles. The opposite sides are congruent, which means they form right angles, and all of the angles are congruent. All four angles have right angles just like a square. The sides across from each other are parallel. And a rectangle has at least two lines of symmetry, sometimes more. And this is a picture of a rectangle. Now let's move on to the rhombus. The rhombus is probably what you would have called a diamond when you were younger. It's similar to the shape of a kite. It has four sides and four angles. All of the sides of a rhombus are congruent, which means they're all the same length. But the angles are not congruent, because you'll have an obtuse angle and an acute angle, and you'll see that in a little while. There are no right angles because we do not have two lines that come together to form a corner. One side is parallel to the other side, at least once. And you do not have a line of, you have two lines of symmetry, and opposite angles are the same. So when we get into angles, which is not this week, then those bigger angles are the same and those smaller angles are the same. So let's move on to the trapezoid. Now, the word trapezoid I know you've seen for a while because I taught it in first grade. A trapezoid has four sides, four angles. But there are no congruent angles on a trapezoid. There are no right angles on a trapezoid. The sides of a trapezoid are parallel to one another. And sometimes it has a line of symmetry, but it doesn't have to have a line of symmetry. And none of the angles are congruent. Sometimes, depending on the drawing, they are, but for the most part, they don't have to be congruent. Whereas on the other four shapes, we mostly had congruent angles. And this is what a trapezoid looks like. A short at the top, then two slanted, then a cross at the bottom. Finally, that moves us to our parallelogram. Our parallelogram has four sides, four corners. The opposite sides are congruent, which means the same length. The opposite angles are also congruent. There are no right angles in a parallelogram. It doesn't have to have a line of symmetry. And opposite angles are congruent. So, in a nutshell, we have 6 different four-sided shapes that vary according to properties. You have to look very carefully. I'll give you a table to glue into your journal tomorrow to help you sort and identify. But for this week's practice, we are going to mix them up and see if you can tell which one is which. Have a great day. Bye.